Now it's time to start a discussion about loops. And loops are usually used when you want to execute a line of code or multiple lines of code repeatedly. And we're going to look at the first loop, and that is the for loop in this video. Therefore, I'm going to delete this code because I don't need this code. Now, to use a for loop, you just type, I'm going to type it here, for. So this is the syntax, for. And here we're going to type, let's say, letter, because with loops, you can loop through a list of elements, you can loop through characters of a string, and you can loop through a range. You're going to see how we can do all of this. So we can say here for letter in, and here we can type, let's say, learning, let's put in quotation marks, learning Python. So we're saying for letter in learning Python, put colon, what we want to do for, and this variable letter can have any name you want, and this variable letter will have at each iteration, at each loop that is gonna go, it will have a different value. So here I can add a print line, and as you can see, we have the indentation here added automatically, and here we're gonna type print the letter. So we're gonna print the letter at each iteration. So we're gonna have L, A, R, in, and so on. So now if I run this code, as you can see, we have our letters displayed one after another, and this is very interesting. Now we can also loop through a list. So if I type here, let's say, names, and I'm gonna create a list. So I'm gonna put square brackets, and I'm gonna type here Alex, comma, Ioana, Anna, John, Steve, Maria. Now, with the for loop, we can loop through our names list, and we can get each element at each iteration. So I can change this now, this for loop, and I can type here for name, and again, this can have the variable can have any name you wish. For name in our names list, I'm gonna add here, I'm gonna change to, we're gonna print the name. So I'm gonna type here name, closing parenthesis. So now if you run this, we'll get Alex, Ioana, Anna, John, Steve, and Maria. So we get all the names displayed one after another because we're using the for loop. And we can use the for loop to loop through a range. So I can type here for, I'm gonna type number again, number, this again could have any name you wish. For name in, and to create a range, we type range, parentheses, and we put n. So what we're saying now here is, let's actually change the print to print the number. So what we are saying now here is loop through all the numbers from 0 to 10, 10 not inclusive, then it's not going to be included, and display each element at each iteration. So now if I run this, as you can see, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 is not included. So this is how you can create a range through which you can loop. And here you can pass two elements. So you can pass here, let's say, 0 and 30. And it will loop through all the elements from 0 to 30. And it's going to display the element that is stored in this variable at each iteration, which is going to be a different value. So now if I run this, look, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on until 29, and 30 is not 30 is not included. Now what I can do, I can loop through our elements using the index of the elements. So what I can do here is I can change, let's change this from names to friends, and what I can do now here is I can change this to friend. Again, this can have any name you want. And we're gonna say in range, and here we're gonna type len. So the len is gonna give us the length of our array, length of friends. And now I'm gonna output in the console here friend. So now if you run this code, we get 0. Actually, yes, you get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because this is the index. What you need actually here instead of friend is to get the friends, so the array, and get here we put square brackets the index. So let's change this friend to index to make it more clear about what you're doing here. So we change that to index because now here we're using the len to get the size of the array, and that is going to return the index, as you saw here. This returns the index, and now we're going to use that index to get the element at that specific index. So I'm going to pass friends, square brackets, and the index. So now if you run this, you'll see that we get Alex, Ioana, Anna, John, Steve, and Maria. So we get all of our friends' names displayed in the console. And this is how we can use the for loop with the len function. Now let's see how we can use if statements in our for loop. So let's say that I want to check here. So I'm going to press enter. I'm going to check here if, let's say, friends get the index of the element. Let's say the element equals to, so the equals to operator that we looked at is equal to, let's say, John. If that is true, I'm going to put colon here, and now when I press enter, as you can see, we have another indentation, and now you are creating the block of code for the if. So we have the indentation there, and I'm gonna say, if that is true, I'm gonna print in the console, we found Steve. Else, so I'm gonna go back here, else, I'm gonna put colon, press enter, we have the line indented, then I'm gonna add print line, I'm gonna say Steve was not found. So now if you run this, we get Alex, and then we get Steve was not found at the first iteration. Then we get Ioana, again it says Steve was not found, because it's executing the else part every time it loops. And then we get Anna, Steve was found, and then we get Steve, and it says Steve was found. And it says we found Steve, because this evaluates to true, and we get actually I should say that here we found Steve, so it says we found Steve, and this part was executed here. So this is how we can use the if with how you can use if statement with loops. One interesting thing that you can do is, if you found the Steve, it doesn't make sense to go like we do it here. As you can see here, after we found Steve, we still iterated for the next element, that way for the Maria element. But once we found Steve, what we should do is to stop the loop, to not go. Imagine that you have millions of friends names stored in your list. In that case, it will not make sense to go through all of that elements once you found your elements. So what we can do to stop the loop? To stop the loop, we use what is called a break statement. So you're gonna say here, if friends.index, so if the element found at that index, at that iteration, is equal to John, we say we found this was the error, so here you should say it's equal to Steve. So that was the problem. This is why I saw the output and I was thinking that this was confusing, but I didn't saw that there is the problem. So now if you run this again, now it will be okay, and we get Steve, and we found Steve. But now I'm gonna say what I tried to say previously. So you get Steve was found, but it still ran and iterated for the next element. So it says Maria, Steve was not found, but we found Steve, so it doesn't make sense to go to the next element or by extension to the next element if you have more. So what we need to do here inside the if, let's put a tab here, what we need to do inside the if here, if we found the element, we're gonna stop the loop. We're not gonna go to the next elements to search because we already found the element. And to stop the loop, we use a break statement. So if I put here break, now when it will find the element Steve, and I'm gonna say we found Steve, we'll break the loop, we'll stop the loop using the break keyword. This is what the break keyword is doing. It's basically stopping the loop. Now, if I run this, now we get Steve, and we found Steve, and we don't get Maria, and we didn't found Steve, because once we found Steve, we stop the loop, and we exit our program. So this is how you can use the break statement with the for loops and with an if statement to basically stop the loop when it's not necessary to go for other iterations. And there is another keyword that you can use, and you heard me saying this thing keyword. And what is a keyword? What a keyword is basically a word which has a very specific name in programming and cannot be used in any other context than in the context of programming. So here we have for, we have in, we have if. All of those are keywords, and those keywords cannot be used as the name. The name cannot be used as the name for variables, or the names, especially as the names for variables, because they have a specific meaning in programming. For the for keyword is used for creating a loop. So if you try to name your variable friends for, as you can see, it immediately added the for loop here. So we cannot use the for loop as the name of the variable. So this is what keywords are. They are special words which have a very specific meaning in programming, and they cannot be used in any other context than the context for which they are created. And keywords are usually they usually have a different color, and in this case they are blue. So this is how you can recognize the keyword. Now there is another keyword that you can use besides the break keyword that we have here, and that is the continue keyword. And the continue keyword can be used to skip some lines of code. And the continue keyword is used when you want to skip some lines of code. So if I say here continue, look what happens. So if I run this, we get Steve, we found Steve, and we get Maria, and we get Steve was not found, because the continue it will if I add some lines of code here, let's say that I add here print again, we found Steve. Now this line of code which comes below of the continue is not going to be executed, because when you use the continue keyword, the code which comes below of the continue keyword is not reachable. It's not going to be executed. So if I run this, you're not going to see we found Steve 2 times, because this code, if you hover over, it says this code is unreachable because what is below of the continue keyword. So it will be ignored by the Python interpreter. So let's delete this. So this is how you can use the continue keyword when you want to skip some code, if you want. And this is our discussion about the for loop, the range, how you can use it with the if statements, the break keyword, and the continue keyword. And now I'm gonna end the video and see you in the next video.